Okay, so today's video is about CSS flutes and Clear. All right, so I have with me here on my HTML site. I decided to create a container, and then inside that container, I created a header. So you can see it here. So I created a main container. This is it, the main container. I created a header, and inside that I put in some text. So you could see that here, malotech.org, and then CSS tutorial on flutes and Clear. Alright, so you could have all that here in my browser. And then again, I also created a content div, and then that content div, I created another site, a main, and then you could have here CSS flutes and Clear, and then some text to actually demonstrate better. So my styling, yeah, so I decided to do the normal. I give it a text definition of none, a box size of a border box, and I give it a background. So this is the background. So if I should change the background to a different color, you see. Okay, so yes. So yeah, you see that when I change the background, let me do let's see hashtag. All right. Okay. So yes, I put a background on this, and then in the container, to I give it a background of white. Let me change it to blue. Okay, and in the sidebar. So in our HTML, I created a sidebar, and then this is it. So you can see that where I created a sidebar, I put my sidebar there, and I decided to give it a float of left. So CSS float is as the name goes, you could make it move to the left, right, as in what we have been able to do here. So because of the CSS float, I was able to move my sidebar to the left, and then my main or my content was also inherited the rest of the rest. All right, so I give it my CSS. I give my sidebar a rate of 25%, and my content inherited the rest. Okay, like a height of 600 pixels and a background of this. All right, so now having done this, I'm going to change my float to right, and then you could see that it has moved to the right. So now so you could see that once I change my CSS float to the right, it has moved to the right. But I want my sidebar to be on the left, so that is why I make it float to the left. Okay, good. So that is it. So now you could see. So that is mainly about the sidebar. But this demonstration should tell you more about this sidebar. All right. So my header, let's see the CSS for my header. It has a pattern, it has a width, it has a height, and it also has a background of this color. All right. So so far, let me enlarge this. Okay. Yes. So this is what we have been able to do so far now using our float. So next is we're going to talk about how the Clear works. So to make this clear, the CSS float property specifies how an element should float. The CSS clear property specifies what element can float beside the cleared element. So looking at from what I just said, the CSS float property specifies how an element should float. All right. So we give this our float left, and then for our main content, we give it a float of right and a weight of 75%. So you could see that 75 plus our 25 plus 75 makes it 100%, making it very clear and then precise and straightforward. Okay. The float property is used for positioning and formatting context. For example, we can text in a container. All right. So as you see, as I demonstrated here, we have a main container, and in that main container we have a content, and in that content we have a sidebar in the main. So we decided to make our sidebar float to the left and our main content float to the right, as it is being demonstrated here. Our main content contains my sidebar, and then our sidebar contains my sidebar, the text my sidebar here, and then our main div or our main class also contains our CSS float clear and then some text. Right, so this is being we are floating this by sidebar to the left and this to the right. Okay. Now, the CSS clear property specifies what content can float beside the cleared element and on which side. So looking at this clear, we are saying that we should clear both, which means we are trying to tell the property that the footer can flow beside the content, and it's supposed to have a height of 100 pixels, and then the width should be inherited. That is the normal width we are using. All right, and it should have a background of blue, and then we are using that it should be able to flow. The CSS property specify what element can float beside the cleared element. The clear property explains what elements can float beside it. Right, so we are saying that now the footer should be able to float beside both content. That's the sidebar and then the main content. Alright, that is why we put clear here. Now when we see that when it is the impact is not really much, but then you could see impact is not really much, but you could see that there was a change, and it's actually very important to always use CSS clear and float. So let's bring it back, and yeah, you can see that it also changed here. So that is all about our CSS clear and float. One thing, the float property always has these things. The float property can have one of the following values: left, the element float to the left of its container; right, the element float to the right of its container; none, the element does not float and will be displayed just where it occurs in the text, and this is default. And here the element inherits the float value of its parent. Okay, in its simplest use, the float property can be used to wrap text around images. For example, we can have an IMG or an image, and it would say float right, and then the image will begin to float right. Okay. So thank you very much for your time, and then this is all about the CSS clear and float. I hope this does some good. Thank you.